The backhand has become also a weapon. In today's tennis, most players hit a two-hand backhand, and that's the future of tennis. It is going to be very difficult for any player to be able to compete with one-hand backhand. And the reason why is because most of the players today in the tour they hit with semi-western grips or western grips, so the ball bounces a lot higher and a lot heavier. Also because most players today hit the ball with a lot of power, so it's very difficult to be able to control the one-hand backhand. The two-hand backhands has a lot of advantages. You can hit the ball a lot harder, you can hit the ball with control, you can hit angle shots, opening up the court, you can hit topspin, and you can return extremely well. So very important for the kids in the future, and very important for the people that have the ability to become professional players to hit with the two-hand backhand. In the past, most players had a one-hand backhand. So they used a lot the slice, they used to just keep the ball in play, but they couldn't attack with that stroke. Today is different. Today with the two-hand backhand, the players have become a lot more aggressive. For one thing, with the one-hand backhand, the players had to step across, losing a lot of the terrain. Today, those players that move very well, like a Djokovic, they hit open stance when they're running wide, being able to cover the court a lot faster and a lot better. Again, that's another advantage of the two-hand backhand. Today, the players use a variety of grips for the two-hand backhand. One of them is the Continental, which is in this position here. Now, the grip that is most used today for the boys is this hand. It remains a Continental grip, and this hand, which is the non-dominant hand, is an Eastern forehand grip. So this is most of the grip. Most of the players in the tour today, 80% of the players use this grip. Now, the girls, what they do is they have this hand as a semi-western grip, and the right hand, they don't change very much. So this is the way the girls hit the ball. They don't change the grips very much. So these are the three types of grips that they use on the grip in the tour today. Again, Continental, Continental Eastern, and the girls are going to hit a little bit this way. But these are the right grips. One of the most common mistakes in the grip is the non-dominant hand when it goes all the way underneath. And we see this also in some good players. This hand is very difficult to control when it's all the way underneath. This is one of the biggest mistakes in the grip. So remember, you got to bring the grip around a little more to an Eastern forehand grip. Don't let them play with a full Western grip on this side because they won't be able to control the ball. The athletic foundation of the two hands, again, very wide apart, very low to the ground. The upper body very strong, the head still. Now, also look at my non-dominant arm. I mean, it's going to be very close. So I'm ready in my grip position. Now, the difference in the other players is they hold the racket from here. What I want to do with the two-hand players is the racket is very close, so we're already in the ready position to hit. Now, the grip that we're going to be waiting for the ball, depends on the eye. If I'm a left eye, right hand, that means that I'm going to be holding the racket with the forehand grip. If I'm a right eye dominant and left-handed, then the grip is going to be the opposite. Most of the players in the tour today are left eye dominant, right hand. So when they wait for the ball, on the forehand grip. And the other hand goes very close, ready for the ball. So again, elbows away from the body, very strong athletic foundation, low to the ground, very strong upper body, And again, the upper body, very relaxed. Strong, but the arms very relaxed. A typical mistake on the athletic foundation is when they are very high. They're playing very high, they're not bending the knees, the arms are very close, very bone chin. Remember, the arms need to be away from the body, the stance need to be wide. Another thing that is important in athletic foundation is don't let them be with the racket open this way. Okay, you see a lot of students waiting for the ball with the racket like this. No, the racket goes in this position, yes, about here. This is the ready position. Don't let them wait for the racket with the racket straight up and with this type of grip. So the athletic foundation, remember, is important also your ready position, how you have your racket before you start the motion. From this athletic foundation, which is the ready position, when the player sees the ball coming, right away he starts adjusting the steps, making sure to take little steps to get ready for the upcoming ball. These adjustment steps are going to be very important to create the proper spacing. So from the athletic foundation, they see the ball coming, I take a little steps. Even before we start taking the racket back, we start moving our feet with very short steps. Those are called the adjustment steps. From this ready position of the athletic foundation, before they start taking the racket back, before they start loading, make sure that they move the feet very well to get in position. When they move the feet, they have to move very quickly, very fast, adjusting back and forth with very short steps. Don't let them go back with big steps. Don't let it sit there and wait for the ball. Make sure, no matter how slow the ball comes, no matter how fast the ball comes, make sure they take a lot of little steps to be able to get ready for the shot. So the adjustment steps need to be short and very fast. So adjusting his feet, making sure we get the right distance to the ball, creates a proper spacing. Remember, when we want to hit the ball, we want to make sure that we are the proper spacing. We cannot be too far, we cannot be too close, the ball cannot be too high, or the ball cannot be too low. All that we do with the adjustment steps to be able to create the proper spacing to be able to hit the ball on the proper contact point. With the spacing, it's important that the students hit the ball with the arms away from the body. And one thing that we see over and over again in the students is where they hit the ball very close. The arms are very close to the body and they swing from here. From here, they have no power. For one thing, with the spacing, when they take the racket back, if the racket is too close to the body, the forward motion is going to be the same. Okay, so make sure they take the little steps, making sure that the distance to the ball is the proper distance. So the adjustment to the racket to the ball is imperative to be able to hit the ball clean in the center of the strings. So once we find our proper spacing, once we determine the distance between us and the ball, we start our loading process. And when we load, we turn the hips very, very strong, shoulder turn, very strong hip turn. So when we hit the ball, we are accumulating all that elastic energy. From this accumulated elastic energy, will be a lot easier for us to be able to execute the shot with a lot of power. Like I said before, there's a difference between the tennis in the past and the tennis today. Before it used to be very linear. People used to step into the shot and they see the ball. Today we're loading very big, very strong. And that's the advantage of the two-hand too, that with this accumulation, we're able to hit the ball very strong, very effectively. Make sure in the loading, make sure they take a big step to load, make sure they stay low for the ball. When they hit the ball, they need to look strong. Don't let the upper body collapse. That's one of the typical mistakes when the ball comes and the student let the upper body collapse. If you look at all the good players, is that they have a glass of water in their head. And when they turn, that water doesn't spill, they stay right there. This upper body very strong, low to the ground, keeping the upper body strong. This is not good. This is the correct way to hit the ball. As we're loading, we're taking the racket back. The non-dominant hand takes the racket back. And if you look at the racket, when the racket goes back, the racket is a little bit above the wrist. So it's not a circular motion. The racket is not up, the racket is not down. It's not a straight back swing. We take the racket back a little bit above the wrist. So this is the way it's supposed to look in the backswing position. We're loading, the non-dominant hand takes the racket back, a little bit above the wrist, and from here we're ready to execute the shot. Two of the typical mistakes, there are a few mistakes on the backswing. One, when the racket goes back way too high. Another one, when they take the racket straight down here. Well, one thing that we always look for is when the racket goes back on the backswing, so it stays on the same side of the shoulders, we keep it here. If the racket is too close to the body, when we step, the racket goes back. The racket goes all the way, and you can see it from the other side. That happens when the student takes the racket back very close to the body. Once they step, the racket goes too far back, and then they're going to lose the power. So what we're looking for is that the arms are away from the body. Again, a little bit above the shoulder, no close to the body, no extended away from the body, very relaxed, but away from the body. From this position, it's very easy to execute the shot. So don't let them go back with the arms very close to the body or in a very big backswing, because they won't be able to tie the ball correctly. So once we find out the proper distance to the ball and we completely load it and our racket is back for the backswing, then it's time for us either to step into the shot. If the ball comes short, we have enough time, we're going to step into the shot to hit the ball. We're going to hit open stance if we're hitting the ball on the run or we're uncomfortable or hitting the ball wide. And same thing, when the ball is high, we prefer open stance. But the stance is going to determine the opponent. The ball that we're receiving is going to determine what kind of a stance we use. We can use open, we can use neutral, or we can use close, all dependent on the shot that we're getting from our opponent. These three stances are correct, and we need to practice the three of them. Another thing that we put a lot of emphasis on is when we stand, when we step to hit the ball, we go heel to toe. So from here we go heel first, heel, and then toe when we hit the ball. We prefer that our students don't step on the toe to hit the ball or flat on their feet. We prefer once they're ready to hit the ball, is heel to toe to be able to release the hips and to be able to execute the shot. One thing that we always look when we stand to hit the ball, when we step to hit the ball, again is the heel to toe, heel to toe. So we gotta make sure the student doesn't step this way. The thing that we always look for is to make sure that they take two little steps. We call it double rhythm. From here they go 1, 2 to be able to get in position. Even if it's open stance, 1, 2, and then they step into the shot. But we always look for that double rhythm, either the 1, 2 or the 1, 2 and then step it to hit the ball. Again, remember, it's heel to toe when you hit the ball. Don't let them step in the feet. This is what you don't want. Heel to toe to hit that ball. Lock in is when our racket, with the back of the racket, points at the ball, and we're ready to fire. From here, we're ready to start our movement forward. So once the racket is back, we step into the shot, we come to the lock-in position. From this position, lock-in position, is when we're ready to fire the energy into the shot, not before. From here, we're able to fire. Now, you look at the lock-in position, very important, the arms are not close to the body. The arms are very relaxed and away from the body. So when we take the racket back, again in the backhand, the racket doesn't cross the plane of the shoulders. the racket stays on the same side of the shoulders. Our backswing stays on the same side of the shoulders. We lock in, the racket doesn't go back, it stays away from the body. From here, we step into the shot, and we're able to execute the shot. Again, back in, the back, remember the back stays away from the body, arms away, lock in position, the racket basically drops, this part points at the ball, the butt of the racket is underneath the ball, so from there we can brush the ball low to high in the follow through. In the lock in position, make sure to look for the butt of the racket. Make sure you as a coach can see the butt of the racket, and the butt of the racket needs to be under the ball to be able to brush the ball low to high. If the student is going back and you only can see this because they're going back too much, you won't be able to see it. So this, you don't want this to happen. Again, if the racket is too high, you don't want that to happen. In the lock-in position, this part needs to be right away this part needs pointing at the ball. If the racket is here, if the racket is in this position, you won't be able to see it, okay? So this is the part that we're looking for. Butt of the racket underneath the ball so you can swing freely low to high. In this lock-in position, we come to our leverage. We come to a leverage. The leverage is determined by the non-dominant hand. The non-dominant hand determines the leverage. Most of the players in the tour today play with this hand with a semi-western grip. So when they lock in, it's a 90-90 angle, 90-90. Remember, the leverage is what's going to give you the mechanical advantage over the ball. That's what's going to give you the power. That's so important that for us as coaches that we're able to see that the leverage is perfectly formed. Again, if it's a semi-western grip, it's 90-90. If it's more of a continental grip, this arm is a little more extended. Okay, so but this is what we're looking for. Again, most of the players in the tour today play with a semi-western grip, so this hand is going to be in a 90-90 position in the leverage. And the leverage, once we get the leverage here, we're ready to start our forward motion. Now remember, from this position here all the way to contact point, the leverage doesn't change, it remains the same. From here to contact point, the leverage remains the same. And we as coaches need to look for that. That cannot fall apart. The elbow cannot go out, it needs to stay the same. From the lock-in position comes the leverage. And where it's important on the leverage, the arms have to be relaxed. One of the typical mistakes that we're going to see, once they come here, the students trying to hit hard, they tense up. They get the arms very tense trying to hit the ball. Make sure the arms are relaxed. In that lock-in position, to be able to get the right leverage, the arms have to be relaxed. Don't let them get tense to hit the ball. They're relaxed so they can hit the ball freely and smoothly. The forward swing then comes right once we lock in, we start our forward motion. Our forward motion starts with the hips and shoulders. The racket drags a little behind, it lags a little behind. So shoulders, all the accumulated energy that we had, all that elastic energy, we need to release it into the ball. So we open up with the hips first, then the shoulders. Now remember, the non-dominant hand is the one that is going to hit the ball, the non-dominant hand. So we have to put emphasis that the non-dominant hand in this forward motion is the one that is going to be accelerating the racket through contact. Again, from here, hips, shoulders, and the racket lags a little behind until we make contact with the ball. Remember, the forward swing comes from the ground up. That's what it comes from the ground up. So first with the feet, it goes all the way to the hips and the shoulders. That's when you see the rotation. But sometimes when the students want to hit hard, they have the tendency to pull with the shoulder. Rather than letting the hips and the shoulders bring the racket around, what they do is they throw the shoulder around, trying to develop more power. and that's the part that you want to eliminate in the forward swing. You want to make sure that when the swing of the ball is very smooth, and everything starts from the ground all the way to the racket. After the forward motion, we gotta make sure that the contact point is in front of the body. We don't want the ball to be or too high from us, or too low, or too far away. We wanna make sure it's the proper distance. And to do that, that's why we did all the adjustment steps in the previous movements. So from here, when we make contact with the ball, the racket needs to be right in front of our body. We know if we're executing the shot correctly by the sound of the ball. If the sound is clean, that means that we're hitting the ball in the middle of the strings. If the sound is not good, it's because we're hitting the ball probably with the frame. So this is important that when we make contact with the ball, it has to be in the same position. Now the good players are going to hit the ball very clean every single time. When you see the students that are making the contact point and the arms are very close to the body, remember, the problem doesn't start here. The problem is starting when we start at the beginning, adjustment steps. Those adjustment steps are going to give you the distance to the ball and the proper spacing. So when you see a student making contact with the ball over and over again, very close to the body, remember, because from the very beginning, they move the feet to get the correct distance between them and the ball. Okay, so try to eliminate this by make sure they move their feet. They have to move their feet to be able to hit the ball in the center of the strings. Right after contact comes the pronation. The racket needs to be opening. As we hit the ball, if I'm in front, this is the way the racket is supposed to look. And from here, the racket keeps going all the way through. This is going to give us the acceleration. It's like one wrist is working one way, and the other wrist is working the other way. They work in the opposite direction to be able to give this head that flexibility and that acceleration that we need on contact. Again, right on contact from here, this is the way the racket is going to look. So we don't want the racket to go all the way out. We want the racket, as soon as we make contact with the ball, to accelerate very quickly, and when we finish the stroke, then the racket finishes up on the follow. Through. Again, this is the position of the racket that we're looking for, right here. Opening the strings as we make contact with the ball. That's the pronation. And remember, the pronation is given by the non-dominant arm. The non-dominant hand is the one that is going to pronate the racket. The non-dominant hand is the one that is going to pronate the racket. Sometimes we can see it with the naked eye. Other times we use the slow motion machine to be able to see. But we're going to see how some students, even good players, once they make contact with the ball, so now they have the tendency to open the racket on the follow-through, and then they bring the racket around. And we want to eliminate that. And the way to eliminate that is by hitting the ball in front, making sure that the left arm or the non-dominant arm is the one swinging the racket around, opening the strings right away on the follow-through. Don't let them do this on the swing. Now, sometimes, as I said, you can see it with the naked eye. Sometimes you need a slow motion machine to make sure the students are doing this. On the pronation side. Don't let him open the racket head. So once the racket pronates and the racket keeps going, the follow through becomes very loose at the end. Very, very loose. It's a segmented swing. We don't want the swing to be very rigid, very, very smooth. We make contact with the ball. Very relaxed, and it's in segments. When they finish the racket, it's a segmented swing. It's all in segments, both arms, very loose at the end of the stroke. This is the follow-through. In the follow-through, make sure that once the racket pronates, the racket keeps going. and they open the racket on the follow-through. Don't let them close the racket on the follow-through. This is a very typical mistake when they try to do this at the end of the stroke. Make sure that the racket is open at the end. In the follow-through, the arms very relaxed, loose. Look at the elbows away from the body, which is the important part. Elbows away from the body, and the racket open at the end of the stroke. The strings open at the end of the stroke. Again, this part pointing at the ball, pointing at the opponent. The way people finish is very personal. Some of them finish all the way around. Some of them finish here. It's personal. What we have to make sure at the end is that the racket finishes with the strings open at the end of the stroke, and that this part is pointing at the other side. We always look for this at the end of the stroke, that this part points at the opponent and the racket is with the strings open at the end. We don't want them to close the strings. Again, it's personal. Some of them finish all the way around, some of them finish more here. It's a personal matter. But the important thing, that what we're looking for biomechanically, is that this part points at the ball and the strings are open at the end of the stroke. Another mistake we're going to see on the finish is when the students get the elbow very close to the body and they finish like this, with the elbows close to the body. We want to make sure when they finish, no matter what the style of play is, making sure that the arms go away from the body, the elbows away from the body. Don't let them finish with the elbows close to the body. Those arms out and away from the body at the end of the stroke. This is the proper way to finish. Elbows away from the body. One of the biggest differences in the game today is the acceleration that we get from the hips and the shoulders for the rotation, the accumulation of energy. So as we make contact with the ball and we finish all the way across, it's going to be very difficult for the players to keep the foot back. This is the way it was taught in the past, not today. The players hit the ball with so much power, so much acceleration. When they finish, the foot comes around. Either or they jump off the ground, if they hit an open stance, they're recovering at the same time, but the foot doesn't stay down. That's the action-reaction. And the only reason they're able to do that is because of the power that they're using in the hips and the shoulders when they make contact with the ball that brings the foot around. Again, it's not an action, it's a pure reaction. The action-reaction is what it is. If the students are hitting with enough force, the body's going to come from here, the body's going to come around. Open stance, they're going to hit, the body's come around. What don't let them do is don't let them hit the ball and jump, for example. A lot of them see the professional players and they think that's what they do in jumping. You don't want them to jump. You want to make sure that they're using the body, the ground, to be able to get the power. So don't let them hit jumping. When they're hitting the ball and they're doing this at the end of the stroke, that's a no-no. Make sure they keep the body down. Again, if the students are hitting the ball with enough force, with enough power, they're going to the other foot is going to come around by itself. It's not an action, it's a reaction of the power. One of the biggest advantages of the two-hand backhand is that the players are hitting open stance, especially when they are put wide. So as they're hitting the ball, at the same time, they're recovering to the center of the court. In the past, they used to hit the ball, they used to take an extra step and go back to the middle. Not today. Today is very efficient. As they're hitting the ball, once they're hitting the ball, they're recovering right away. If they hit an open stance, they're hitting, and right away they come into the center of the court. Those recovery steps are done at the same time as they're hitting the ball. And what we teach students a lot is once they hit the ball, the first step needs to be a crossover step. Okay? So once they hit the ball at the end, the first step is a crossover step to get ready for the next shot. We don't want them shuffling to be able to hit the ball. The first step is a strong step and right back to the middle, ready to hit the next shot. That's recovery step. That's why tennis is so fast today, because the players move very efficiently today. We put a lot of emphasis on the recovery step to make sure they maximize the time. If they're hitting open stance, as they're hitting the ball, they're recovering to the center right away. If they're hitting close stance, they hit the ball, they turn around and right away crossover step. What you don't want the students to do is to be able to hit the ball either close stance or open stance and hop to the middle. You don't want them hopping to the middle. You want to make sure to do recovery quickly by crossover step and right away coming back to the middle of the court. In today's tennis, very few players and less are playing with the one hand. The one-hand players are very difficult for them to control the ball, to develop the same power as a two-hand player. So what is becoming more of an instinct stroke. For example, I don't like to teach our students, I don't like to teach them the one hand. I prefer that they stick to the two-hand backhands, because that is the future of tennis. The two-hand is the future of tennis. But we're going to explain a little bit about the one hand, what grips, backswings, everything to do with the one hand backhand. In the past, everybody used to teach the backhand grip basically with an Eastern backhand grip. But today, none of the professional players will play with this grip. They play with a very strong, close to a semi-Western backhand grip, where the palm is behind, and they're able to hit with a lot more power. So this is the grip that most of the players hit with the backhand today. Again, this is the way they used to teach in the past, an Eastern backhand grip. This is very weak. This is a very weak grip. This grip is a lot stronger, and they're able to hit the ball with more topspin, hitting with the hand right behind the grip. When we load for the one-hand backhand, when we load, again, very wide, we turn the hips, we turn the shoulders. Now the racket, when we take the racket back, the non-dominant hand is the one that takes the racket back. This hand takes the racket back. The racket is a little higher than the shoulder. At the same time, the racket crosses the plane of the shoulders. In the two-hand backhand, it does not cross the plane of the shoulders. In the one-hand backhand, it's a very big shoulder turn, so the racket crosses the plane of the shoulders. Again, from this position, with the non-dominant hand, we pull the racket all the way back. We stay very low. The racket gets behind our shoulder to be able to hit the shot, and the racket is higher. Once the racket is all the way back, our shoulder is turned, our chin is over our shoulder. When the ball comes, we're going to take, usually we'll tell our students to take 2 little steps. 1, 2 to be able to hit the shot. We prefer that the students, for the one hand, they stay sideways to hit the ball. It's very difficult with the one hand to execute the shot open stance. We don't want them to hit close stance either. So what we want them to do is double rhythm. We call it double rhythm. Take that racket back, 1, 2, and step into the shot to be able to execute. So when we step into the shot to hit the ball, we come to the lock-in position. In the lock-in position, the bar of the racket is pointing at the ball. The arm is not close to the body, the arm is away from the body, and we form an L, very strong L. The arm and the racket form a very strong L. From here, from this locking position, it comes the leverage. And this leverage is very strong. So again, we've called the L. We have to see the L. We cannot see the arm relaxed. We cannot see the arm very close, away from the body, but very strong. From here, that's when we're going to be able to start our forward movement. Again, from this back in, when we're ready to hit the ball, we go to the locking position. In the locking position, the bottom of the racket is underneath the ball, and the bottom of the racket points at the ball. From here is the leverage too, and the leverage is formed by a big L between the arm and the racket. This is the big L that is going to give us the power. From here, we're ready to start our forward movement. Here, this position is very strong. We don't want the arm to be relaxed. We don't want the arm to be very close to the body. The arm is away from the body, and the arm is very straight, very strong, to be able to accelerate that racket through contact. On contact, from here on contact, the racket is going to move this way. That's the way the racket is going to move. From here, the racket is going to move this way. What we see a lot of people teaching is that they make contact with the ball and they want the racket to go to the target. No, you make contact with the ball, and from here, the racket goes up. So the movement is more this way. And when you see the racket again, you see how the strings are opening right away. As soon as I make contact with the ball, the racket is opening right away. So the contact is low to high with the strings open. And when I finish, again, look at the racket at the end. The bottom of the racket is pointing at the other side of the net, and the racket is open at the end of the stroke. Again, as I finish the stroke and then I follow through, the left arm of the non-dominant arm stays back. So the way it looks is this way. When I hit the ball, the hands go together out and away from the body. From here, out and away from the body. Again, since I'm hitting the ball so strongly, you're going to see most of the one-hand players, when they finish, they're going to finish with the foot around. Coming around. This is the action reaction of the stroke because they're hitting the ball so fast using the hips and the shoulders. Again, from here the hand goes back, my hand comes around, and by the time I finish, my shoulder is all the way across and my racket is up.